Big spending blue state politicians are losing their minds over a proposed GOP deduction cut that would help pay for the Republican tax plan. Why? Because it would expose their blue state spending nightmares and actually hold them accountable for how deep their grabby hands are in taxpayers' pockets. Cue the socialist-lite tears.
First time ever anywhere, the 45th President of the United States of America.
The Republican Party's long-awaited tax overhaul is just over the horizon, and Democrats are throwing every smear they can at it to find out what'll stick. Their latest target is a GOP proposal to get rid of a tax provision that lets people write off state and local taxes on their federal forms, meaning blue states would be forced to pay full price for their own out-of-control massive spending, and Section 10 on the income portion of your federal tax forms would get nixed. Here's the really rich part. You know how much Democrats and some liberal Republicans rail against tax cuts for the wealthy?
Tax break for the rich.
Tax break for the rich.
Tax break for the rich.
Well, that's exactly what this deduction does in its current form. The Joint Committee on Taxation found that 88% of the benefits from this tax deduction go to people who make above $100,000. So, why don't class warfare peddling politicians on the left want to gut it? Well, because the deduction is like a monetary morphine drip that rewards state-level socialism-lite at the expense of taxpayers in states that manage to keep their budget and their taxes responsibly low. So, if you live in a blue state spending hub like New York, California, Illinois, or New Jersey, states that spend a ton on big government and charge a lot to cover the costs, the differences could be
huge.
That's because with the federal government picking up the real costs of spending, it's been easier for politicians in some states to blow up their budgets and pay for it on the back end with super high tax rates. And as Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. The reality is, if you're not going to cut government, which doesn't seem to be in style these days, you have to pay for tax cuts from somewhere else. And one way to do that is by removing a federal subsidy scheme that lets blue states bloat their budget while leaving everyone else to pick up the tab. Now, some politicians are trying to smear this proposal as a tax burden on middle-class folks in big government states, like New York GOP Congressman Dan Donovan, who claimed eliminating the deduction would mean that people in New York couldn't buy homes anymore, couldn't pay their mortgages, couldn't pay their children's tuitions. But putting it like that misplaces the blame, because those high tax rates were already there. It's just Americans in more conservative areas have been forced to foot the bill for them because of how the tax code is set up. Economist Thomas Sowell famously said that Election Day should be held on April 16th, right after Tax Day, to help discourage big government taxation and spending. Well, gutting this blue state subsidy scheme might have a similar effect in the long run. The thing about federalism is that if a state is being governed in a way that you don't like, you have two big options. Either vote the big spenders out, or vote with your feet and find a state where you're not going to be charged through the nose, which is already happening in blue states like New York and Illinois, where people have been leaving in droves to escape big government taxes. The fact of the matter here is that sunlight is the world's best disinfectant, and getting rid of our tax code's blue state socialism subsidy would both help pay for the GOP's tax cut plan and shine a high-powered laser beam at reckless government spending. I'm Nate Madden, and this has been your Capitol Hill Brief. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.